Good evening. Boy, that did it. All right. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for being here in person and for everyone out in TV land. That's why we're live streaming today, so people can be accessible, and also, if there is weather, which is Michigan, you can live stream. So thank you to all of you for joining us today. So first, I want to start by thanking our sponsors. And that would be Comerica Bank, Martin Rea, Michigan Growth Advisors, Oakland County Economic Development, and Phoenix Contact, and also CGI. So a round of applause for our partners and sponsors today. Thank you. All of these companies that you see here are very active with us, and thank you to Michigan Strategic Growth and Christine Rader, who we've worked with for a long time, for being a new sponsor. But to all of the rest of you, thank you for your continued support. And specifically, I want to introduce Andrew Kiesfetter from CGI. Many of you know CGI and many of you don't, but we know them very well because they are a partner and they have helped us extensively with our Square One network and the robotics program. And I know Barb is here, and we have done a lot of technology improvements, still working through bugs and getting things, but the goal with CGI and Square One and our team is to triple the number of robotics teams across the state, and we're on the way to do that. So Barb, thank you, and Andrew, the podium is yours. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, everyone, and very pleased to be here. As Glenn said, Andrew Kiesfetter with CGI. We have been partnering with the state of Michigan and Detroit and in many other organizations across the state for quite a few years now. First of all, let me explain who CGI is. A lot of people have never heard about CGI. We are one of the largest IT and business consulting firms in the world. We serve all industries. When you look at government, auto industry, manufacturing, banking, healthcare, providing a lot of intuitive, efficient systems to support everyone's needs. And so what we also do, though, is we really focus on having a metro focus and growing with the community and with the organizations in that community. As we expand our presence across Michigan, we look to have a larger presence here in Detroit, have an office here and serving you, and having some of our talent that live here work with you on a day-to-day basis. But so just to give you an idea of kind of what we do, as I mentioned, in the IT side, we're full end-to-end services. We do have some products that we offer to bring forward. As Glenn mentioned, we help build systems on different platforms, if that's a need of yours. And in addition, we do a lot of system integration work, managed services. We even have our own data centers and we host. And of course, the industry is changing significantly right now around a thing called AI. And if you haven't started using it, you're already behind. But we, as a company, are trying to guide a lot of our clients through that journey because there's still a lot to figure out in getting the benefit and the efficiencies. But we do see that being something that really is going to affect the auto industry as we move forward in some of the manufacturing processes because there's going to be a lot of efficiencies gained in the systems that support your industry. So I just, I'm getting an echo there, but I do think that we, just so you kind of understand a little bit more about what CGI is, we have been really focused on proximity. Like I said, I want to build a location here in Detroit. I'm currently from Louisville, Kentucky, but work out of our Chicago office a lot and have an office over in Lansing. And so we're spending a lot of time here in Michigan. I want to get to know all of you and grow and help you be effective and efficient in your industry. What I will say is, if you have a need on AI and want to understand how to use it, let me know. I can bring in our AI experts to help you through that process, give you an idea of what we're seeing across the globe and how we can bring that forward to help you grow your organization. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Glenn.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
So just to give you a little flavor, so when we met Barb in Square One, we've known each other for a long time, we found that the teachers were using Excel spreadsheets, and I think we were beyond faxes, but that's where everybody knows about FIRST Robotics, and everybody supports that, and we support it too. But to grow this homegrown program, we needed a CRM and data tool and analytics tool, and CGI helped build that for you. So we're on our way, because you can't grow unless you've got technology behind you. So thank you. So with that, I'm going to dive right in. We have a tight program, and we have a great conversation set up for you. But to tee it up, the first couple things I want to do is I want to thank all of you in the room and those watching for being investors. We use that word investors for two reasons. You're invested in us, and we're invested in your success. Promoting, retaining, and growing the industry in Michigan has been the mantra for MichAuto since it was founded, and we can't do that work. We're completely funded by the industry, and our industry tent is a little bit different than other associations in that it's really welcome to anyone who's a stakeholder in the industry. And many of you are in the room, so thank you very much. I also want to thank our staff. There are a few of them here tonight. This is the chamber team, the MichAuto team, which is one and the same. Our events team are all the folks that work on our media, our comms, and specifically you're going to hear us talk about that. Kristen and Astea from our research and data team, because they were the primary drivers in building the report that you're going to see tonight. All of our work is really driven by what's happening around us. And we all know that ebbs and flows and changes, but we look at what the forces at work are to shape the work that we do. So I want to take you real quickly through a little bit of a report card to show you what we've done this year, what the priorities are to set up the conversation further. So first I'll start with talent. And here's some pictures and images, but across the top, you can see that we reached 3,000 people, or 3,000 students, with our experiential program of bringing them into your facilities, both manufacturing and R&D. We have 20 million views on our UDrive platform. And we have a variety of programs, including supporting the Hemlock STEM Center, but also two new ones, Youth Tank and Detroit Mercy's intern program. We also have our advocacy arm. And our advocacy arm has been busy, probably the busiest we've ever been. Top left is the auto show, which is upon us in a few weeks again, can't believe it, where we run legislator tours. We'll be here in this room. You'll get an invite to that. Our Capital Day in April. And then, of course, this little T word that we've been dealing with all year long, tariffs. Never in my career have I seen something really consume the industry from a policy and a trade perspective like that. We've been through a lot, even the last 5 years. If you look at COVID, the chip shortages, supply chain disruptions, but if you look at what we've been doing since January 20th, the America First Trade Policy Act came out, it's really been both overwhelming and fulfilling for us because that's our job. You'll see the bottom left is a letter we wrote to Commerce Secretary Besant and a couple of the other secretaries and Secretary of Trade Greer. And then Paul Corbett, who's our Director of Government Affairs, he testified on Capitol Hill at the USMCA hearings last week. We provided our, I'd like to say we prevent changes to the USMCA, but we haven't done that yet. But we're at the table, and we're at the forefront, and that's our job. You're going to hear more about this in a minute. And then lastly, our three pillars, talent, advocacy, and the industry transition. This will tee up the conversation today. That far left picture was about 2 months ago. We took two of our companies, Denso and Ford, with us to Lansing, and we sat down in 2 briefings for any legislator who wanted to show up. And we gave them a presentation called The 5 Forces of Change, which is some of the things you saw earlier and some of the things you'll see more of. We're going to be doing more and more of that. We've always done that. But if they don't understand what the forces of change are, and we walked them through what BYD is and what they look like. We showed them the 9,000 vehicle carriers that are on the oceans. And not just the scale and the scope, but it's also the forces of innovation change that are upon us. And then as of this morning, we've done 131 interviews. So we have done 134 media connections or responses from people all over the globe. I think we've had every country that trades with the US in this office with a camera crew, either from their country out of DC or New York. And then just yesterday, Kati and I got an email from Sky News. We spent a day with them a month ago, and they just published or put on air a half-hour documentary on trade between Ontario and Canada and how it is affected globally. And we were featured in that and honored to do that. But really what that brings us to is the State of Automobility report, which you have in front of us. Now, we've done this differently this year. It's got a little different look. We've been doing it since 2013. That was the first one. We put some of the covers up there for a reason, because in 2019, we decided, let's have a student from a local community college or university do this cover for us. So this year's cover was designed by Courtney Melvin of Washtenaw Community College. And all the students, we give them some general guidelines, but it's their artwork, and we work with them on it. And she did a really great job. That QR code will take you directly to it. But the report is designed to do two things. The traditional data that we provide is there. And that data is really divided into 4 sections: core industry data, talent data, electrification and other propulsion systems, and then the innovation economy, which you're going to hear more and more about moving forward in our state from an economic development standpoint and an investment standpoint. So that is how the report is laid out. But the front end has a stage setter, including the letter from our team, the forces of change, and then also what the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the challenges are for our industry. And that's really what we've designed this conversation to be about with our panel tonight. So as we move forward, it's a little timeline that we keep track of. Many of you know that MichAuto was founded in 2007. It was given a home here at the Detroit Regional Chamber in 2012. I like to say it gave it wings, and we had the support to grow it. And we've gone from 4 investors in the early days to almost 100 right now, and it's growing. And our roadmap for the future is really important, because our roadmap is your roadmap, and the state needs to have the toolkit to allow companies to grow. I went to Flint yesterday and spent the day at General Motors at the original Dort factory, and that whole factory is renovated, and it's an incredible place. And then I went and toured the new GM Heritage Center. That's 1890, 1901, 1904 that all started. So it's a 120 plus year industry. And if we want 120 more years, we're going to have to do things differently in this state. I know you've seen the BLM report. I know you hear from the chamber on a regular basis. I know we know what needs to be done. But next year is a pivotal year for this state. And that's a pivotal election year. It's a pivotal election or economic development year. And it's something we as an industry have to be at the forefront for. So what we're doing is we're launching a roadmap and competitiveness project. We've got RFPs out. We're going to have a partner that works with us on this. We're going to have a series of roundtables. We've already done one at Oakland County. We're going to do another one at Oakland County and Macomb, but we're going to go to Jackson and Grand Rapids and Traverse City again around the state to talk to the industry, have listening sessions. And when the new governor takes office next year, and when the new legislature comes in, and when our new U.S. Congress seats are filled, we will have a roadmap of the priorities that this industry needs to grow in our state. And we have fundamental things that need to be addressed. But make no mistake about it, when you look at those competitive forces, and when you look at the sea of change that is coming at us, I don't have to explain it to this room. You all live and breathe this. But we do need to explain it to our policy leaders, and our education leaders, and our government leaders, and anyone who's a stakeholder, because we need to do this for at least 120 more years. So it's a statewide industry engagement project. You're going to hear more about it. But this will be our kind of signature program and calling card, and we'll weave through everything we do in the year ahead and beyond. It's not set to be a once in a year. It's set to set a blueprint for a long time. So if you're an investor, we sure appreciate it. If you're not, there's a QR code that you can easily get connected with us. But talk to any of us if you're not. And I think most of the people in the room are friends, longtime supporters, and we really appreciate that. So with that, I am going to welcome up our panel. And it's set up to be kind of an informal discussion. And really, I asked all the people to be candid and to be open. And what you'll see here is, I'm going to introduce them. They can all walk up one at a time. We've intentionally put this group together because they bring a lot to us for different reasons. And April Bear from Stateside, thank you for moderating today. Daniel Howes, and I think Daniel and I have been talking about the issues of the industry for a long, long time. We're glad he's here. Elizabeth Creer, who's the relatively new CEO for the Center of Automotive Research, and I underscore the Center for Automotive Research. That's our asset. And then Tu Lee, and Tu, we've gotten to know Tu well over the last couple of years, and he's got a pulse on China, where the industry's going, where it's been, because he grew up in it. He grew up in it here in Detroit and lived in China for a long time. So with that, welcome, thank you. I'll turn it over to all of you.
It works though. So, how's everybody doing? Yeah. I want to thank you all for being here today. It's what we've got left is community, right? And I understand that that can be a complicated concept in this space, but it's really a pleasure to be here talking things through with you. And thanks to the panel. This is a bunch of rock stars. And thanks to Dan Howes for sticking it to Glenn to turn the mic over to somebody else for this event. I want to start out by asking everyone to talk about one thing that happened this year that you did not expect, following caveats, no repeating. You can't cite what somebody else said. And new jobs, Elizabeth, don't count. And the Tigers and the Lions also don't count. Dan, so while Dan and Elizabeth rethink their answers, I guess, too, that puts you in the hot seat with the first answer.
Well, I would say directly affecting the state of Michigan and the United States, the USMCA getting blown up.
Yeah.
It creates a lot of uncertainty, but for startup companies, the ones that are hungry, it creates a lot of opportunity. And so I think, to Glenn's point, it's going to shape 26 in the future. And hopefully the organizations in this room, the companies in this room are thinking about moving faster, breaking things, and being part of that future. So.
Dan, how about you?
Well, this is something actually I've been thinking about recently, and I would say the imposition of tariffs is probably the biggest economic lie foisted on the American people in the post-war era.
There it is. He said he was going to do it. I mean, was it really a surprise, though?
It's been a surprise that it has been, in some ways been as effective as it has. I mean, the next thing I would say is the strategic reversal by the auto industry, essentially turning around on a dime as incentives were taken away. And now what I see happening, and this may be something we'll talk about more, is a retreat into what I call Fortress Midwest. That the industry is slowly ebbing away from other parts of the world. When I started covering, I was a beat writer in General Motors. In fact, one of the reasons I was so blown away at the opportunity was because they were everywhere, and I could go everywhere. And now they've retreated to only places where they make a profit, which I understand. But we're fast on a track to becoming not a global industry in terms of these companies at the rate we're going. Ford just did a deal with Renault yesterday, a partnership in which Jim Farley talked about the need for them to be competitive in Europe, but it's a real slog.
We'll talk more about the future of a global space here. But Elizabeth, what about you? What has been one of the biggest bombshells that you did not expect?
I did not expect, along with the incentives that you mentioned went away for EVs, I did not expect that the emission and CAFE regulations would be repealed so much. Growing up as an engineer in the industry, we live and breathe those policies. And so when we think about the EV transition, those policies are what allowed people to say, hey, we're going to have a target of 50% by 2030. And so by those kind of getting reversed, I think that really opens up the door, number one, for strategic changes within the industry. Hemi's coming back. GM's investing $850 million in internal combustion engines. It gives that opportunity. So that to me was really a big surprise. It also allows the customer to set the pace.
No question. I did wonder though, I mean, it felt like the enforcement piece of CAFE standards. I mean, wasn't that rolled back before even the big press conference and the announcement? I mean, I guess I kind of felt like the writing was on the wall.
Well, the penalties were rolled back.
Right. Sorry,
Penalties
yes.
were rolled back.
I think the thing that has teeth is that they are taking the power away from the state of California for
Yeah.
creating their own standards, because
Yeah.
California is a country in and of itself. I think it's a top 10 country from a vehicle sales standpoint. So, you know, if California is able to fight back and keep that independence, then they're still going to have some challenges ahead of them, the OEMs. So.
Right.
But news this week also, Europe is now looking at softening the transition also.
Well, when you have, as somebody who worked in Germany, lived and worked in Germany for 4 years, when you have the CEOs of Volkswagen, Mercedes, and BMW come to the German government and talk to the chancellor effectively on their knees, saying we need some changes in these policies. These companies have been laid low. The Chinese, as you know, the electric vehicle penetration in Europe is fast and growing, and it's causing more and more problems for those companies.
Well, if we look at the Germans, because Stellantis has effectively left the China market with the exception of investing 21% into Leapmotor. The Germans for a very long time have had 30, 40, 50% of their profits come from the China market. So there's a quid pro quo here going on. And if you look at Spain, Spain has been heavily invested in on the clean energy side, from battery companies to EV companies. So Spain doesn't want to move that 2035 date. And, you know, to both your points, if our OEMs and tier ones can't build clean energy vehicles, GM and Ford effectively become single product, single market companies.
Okay, so we've,
Henceforth, isn't it?
right.
Should we play a drinking game anytime we say trade or tariff, we drink? You know,
I
so.
think the drinking game is just anytime anyone says anything in 2025, you drink. Okay, so we've ripped the Band-Aid off. It was not the worst sales year. I understand that everybody's barometers got pretty messed up during COVID, and we're all kind of still getting back together from that. But can we please go around the table once and just talk about something hopeful that you see right now, that if you're clinging onto it with a death grip, like you know, as your adult life teddy bear, that's fine. But something that you hope does not get overlooked in this moment. And Elizabeth, let's start this way, and then we'll go down the line.
Partnerships. I think, you know, I'm a product of Sergio Marchionne. He said it, you know, God rest his soul. He said it a long time ago. This industry is going to succeed with partnerships and collaboration. The pace of technologies just was going so fast that these companies don't have the capital to go it alone. And so you mentioned Ford and Renault, General Motors and Hyundai, Nissan and Honda, Volkswagen and Rivian. I mean, we're seeing these partnerships. We're seeing it also with supply base, LG Energy, General Motors, not just a supplier, but a backbone to the new propulsion systems.
Dan, how about you?
Something that I think is very interesting is the coming battle, huge battle we've never seen before in this town ever, where you have the two major car companies going head-to-head in the most premier racing series in the world. General Motors is fielding its team for the first time. Ford is getting back into F1. They've already been going at it in the Le Mans prototype series. They're going at each other. You have, at both companies, you have a president who's a licensed race car driver. You have a CEO who's a licensed race car driver. And oh, by the way, Akio Toyota is as well, and Toyota is in that fight as well.
Yeah.
I think for any of you who watch racing, we're going to be investing at the Detroit News in more coverage. We have on our staff a real bona fide race car driver. Henry Payne is a race car driver. He and his boys race Porsches all over the Midwest and the South. He knows racing, and you're going to see that in the coverage. But I think it's going to be wonderful to see them going after each other. I mean, I love it when you get the Mustang Corvette kind of thing going on, but now it's going to be at a whole global level.
Something has really happened too with just visibility. My 15-year-old daughter is, losing her mind over this.
Well, did she watch Drive to Survive?
You know it.
Yeah.
Well,
Netflix.
that's Netflix. That's huge.
Yeah,
The United States,
yeah.
by the way, went from 0 or 1 to now having 3
Right.
F1 races. It's the only country, I believe, in the world that has 3 races.
As Michael Jordan is suing NASCAR.
I didn't know that.
Wait, what?
Michael Jordan's racing team is suing NASCAR
For what reason?
for being too, what's the right
Too
word?
hands-on.
Anti-competitive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your bright spot for 2025?
Oh, for 2025?
I thought you meant for 2026.
Yeah, I thought
I'm
2026.
talking
It'll work.
2026.
It'll work.
Okay.
Do you want to second?
I thought you meant for 25 also.
Oh,
Do you
well,
want to take another shot, Dan? Is there
No.
something else from this year? No, he does not.
Well, yeah, no. I'm gonna let it go.
You can riff off mine.
All right.
Welcoming Waymo in 2026. If we're supposed to be the global epicenter for mobility and not automotive, why isn't Uber here? Why isn't Lyft here? Why isn't
Question.
all these companies here? Because they don't feel welcome. The talent is not here, and the automotive companies take all the air out of the room. And it feels like Waymo's gonna come here despite, what we didn't welcome them with, okay? So this means one thing about autonomous vehicles, that at least one company is ready to go 4 seasons, right? I was told by some Waymo folks 2 weeks ago, you're gonna start seeing them here in January because they're gonna start collecting data on winter roads. And ideally, they said by the end of next year, they're gonna start charging. So I'm here for it. We need more competition. We don't need 2 or 3 people dictating the pace to everybody else. We need it dictated to them. And that's how they're gonna innovate, and that's how we're gonna continue to be relevant.
Hot takes, he's got them, folks. Did you want to rip out that, Dan, or should
No,
we,
I think well, they're not welcome here. I mean, I don't know why that's a surprise. This is an industry town, and right now the industry is focused on making money with V8s.
So, but I want to hear a little bit more about what you mean by welcome to, because I've lived on the West Coast, and they actually can give in Oregon, they can give Midwesterners a run for their money on passive aggression. And, and yet there's been tech investment, just flying to get in. What do you mean by welcoming? What should we have seen, and what should we see in the future?
I think Mayor Duggan has done a great job for the city of Detroit, but one of the opportunities was to be more open to technology companies, whether they're micromobility, because they should have regional headquarters here, from the standpoint of if they're gonna be in Silicon Valley mothership, that's great, right? They shouldn't have small offices in Ann Arbor. They should, again, be partnering, right, with the OEMs. Because why didn't GM move Cruise here, right? I mean,
Because they thought it would be more welcome and they'd have better access to town.
and look
They
what
said-
happened there, right?
Wow.
So anyways, I digress. I just think that if we want to be known and the world to look at us as a global mobility center, we need to balance out the scales a little bit and lean into that technology part of it, as opposed to, we're going to build stuff here and then we're going to use Silicon Valley as the tech side. That's not going to work.
Elizabeth, did you have something to add to that?
The only thing I was going to add was the consumer piece of it. The Michigan consumer is also very ingrained in the legacy auto. I mean, with families and generations working for the legacy autos. And, you know, Michigan was late to come to the party on EV adoption. They were among the lowest states until the legacy companies started having their corporate vehicles.
Right.
So I think there is a consumer piece of it also, which maybe that also played into some of the cities that they picked, not to mention the weather.
Well, I would argue that the OEMs aren't friendly. I mean, the MSRP on a passenger vehicle hasn't been more expensive ever. It's over $50,000. So how is that consumer friendly, right? This is the whole thing. You can't be consumer friendly and be a dealer and have the worst, sales process in any industry. One of the worst. You can't call yourself customer facing and have these reputations. It just doesn't port.
You know, this gets to, I think, one of the conundrums of the moment. You know, Glenn alluded to the fact that next year is going to be a huge year in terms of Lansing and, other, election races that we're looking at. And I'm curious, I know not everybody on this panel is anxious to discuss politics as I am, and that's fair.
I will.
But Dan, yeah, I knew you had my back on this one. What kind of, given that Michigan's been having this super messy sort of cathartic soul searching about whether or not we're even going to do business development anymore, what do you need to see out of the candidates in terms of presenting that welcoming front?
Well, I would say, you mentioned Mayor Duggan. I mean, if you look at his record, I mean, this is a guy, I said this many, many times, he was a non-traditional Democrat. He worked across the aisle. He worked with business. He worked with Republicans. Now, you can argue as to whether that his time is now, but if there's anybody that I think could broker some of these and kind of broker the breaking of the Gordian knot, if you will, over, say, educational policy and other things, I think it's Mike Duggan. Look, I don't want to be Danny Downer here, but I will say this. I've been covering these issues in this state for 30 years. The report that you have in front of you, talking about talent retention, talking about educational attainment, I've been talking about that for 30 years. And it has not gotten materially better, and when it has gotten materially better, it hasn't hung on to the gains. Then you'll have a change of leadership in Lansing, and all of a sudden a lot of those reforms get unwound.
Right.
We don't have a consensus over basic issues of educational attainment, economic development, and moving forward. We have at least two versions of it, probably more. And I think we have to be realistic in our discussion of policy, that while we live in a partisan age, I don't think necessarily, I think this is Duggan's bet, is that partisanship is not the answer. Because it wasn't the answer in Detroit. The reason we had the successful bankruptcy because Rick Snyder was not a traditional Republican.
Right.
And he got Republicans in Lansing who did not represent Detroit, obviously, to back a plan to bail out through a bankruptcy the city of Detroit. And Mike Duggan took, when he came into office, took what was left over and what he was presented with and led it to what you see today. It's not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than when he came.
I have a pocket full of thoughts about why a centrist Democrat who happens to have X chromosomes was not heard in Lansing, but we'll save that for another day.
Can I add to what Daniel was saying? So let me qualify this. My father, 27 and a half years at General Motors. My sister, 35 years. Her husband, 30 years. Currently, my brother works at Stellantis. I've worked at GM and Ford in Lear. Brother works at Isuzu in Canton right now. So I'm going to qualify this, but there's a but. If you look at the OEMs here, they're not growing, right? So they're not adding jobs to any economy. They're basically moving chairs around. And so as a state, and we have to separate being advocates for the OEMs versus being advocates for the state in economic development. Who is growing in the global automotive space? The Chinese are. Right? And Glenn probably hates me for this, but I'll text him at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night with articles that I'm reading. And there was a New York Times article from last week, and I tweeted out, I said, if the USMCA can't get renegotiated, the Canadians will produce tariffs on Chinese vehicles to zero, and Trump will invite the Chinese to come manufacture in the U.S. That's what's going to happen. And so we as a state need to figure out, do we want jobs or do we want UAW jobs? I don't know what the answer is. I'm just throwing that out there.
It's so, it's just like comparing the rate of growth in China with what's happening here is so, I mean, it's such a radical comparison. I mean, the two systems are completely different.
We did a story on that. I had a reporter, Brianna Noble, who did a story on the reality is that the Detroit, and Jim Farley is a great voice on this. The Detroit industry knows it needs to compete with China, but it can't be China.
Exactly.
That the authoritarian labor policies, as one example, that they are pursued would be totally unacceptable in the United States, union or non-union. And I mean, people that are working, I think 6 or even
996.
996. Thank you. 9 to 9, 6 days a week. Are you kidding me? Just one example. And
But
so,
Dan, I got to tell you, I was just in Silicon Valley 2 weeks ago. They're working their butts off too.
Yeah.
So
well,
it's
that's
not-
another issue.
And we talk about China, but we need to be also fearful of what's going on.
I
in
have
Silicon Valley.
had executives who work now in the big three who have worked in Silicon Valley. One of them said to me, do these people, and they meant generally the people in this room, in this town, in this city, state, do these people realize what they're up against? And this person said, I've
been
worked
saying
in
that for
Silicon,
7
I've
years.
worked in Silicon Valley, and they've worked with people from China, from India, from Southern Asia, and they said they will outwork you, they will work longer. Now you can debate all you want about whether that's appropriate, but they will do it.
So what are you saying? Are you saying just keep on rolling back,
No, I'm not
follow
saying
your
that at all.
blessings?
I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying we need to have an honest discussion about what the stakes really are.
It's
And then the
what's
question
happening right
is
now
how-
in Europe. Honestly, they're having an honest discussion because the French take August off and they work 35 hours a week.
Right.
Is that sustainable?
And the French are also inviting the Chinese to build auto plants in their country.
So,
Maybe it's not the either or then. But okay, let's confront the question that I know too's been itching to talk about. It's been on all of our minds really. It's like what does it mean if we're not talking about what we do in Michigan as a competitive, if as a globally competitive system or a globally competitive player? Are we okay with that? Can you talk about why that's the way you see this going?
so I believe, as an American educated person, I believe technical skills, we have it. Manufacturing, software development, it's the Europeans that are kind of screwed on that stuff. But when it comes to dealing and talking with the tier ones and the OEMs, which I do fairly often, informally quite often, it's culture and management that needs to change, and speed at which things happen, decisions are made. Because right now, a Chinese company can go from clean sheet to job one in 18 months. 18 months. So if we eke out 3% efficiency increase in current processes at any one of these companies, we're still losing. So, and then you think about, again, if you're an investor, share price for GM and Ford has been flat for a long, long time.
Well,
Okay?
somebody just told me GM is trading at 80. Didn't you tell me that?
Anybody?
Oh, nice. So maybe,
Something's happening.
yeah.
In fact, I was
so-
going to look at it on my phone.
And here's the crazy thing. GM builds hybrids in China. They have so for the ex-GMers or the GM folks, they built a U-Van called the GL8 in China, and it's a hybrid, and it's one of the coolest MPVs you'll see. And Ford builds a hybrid Bronco in China. Hybrid Bronco. So they can't tell me that they can't do it. They just can't do it in this market.
I worry that we're chasing a phantom sometimes. With the pace of investment, yes, innovation is going fast, but investment is going really fast, and government-supported investment is moving really quickly in China too. Is it possible that what we're trying to chase is a bubble?
So with the Chinese, we can agree that the sector has been subsidized. McKinsey did a report that said that it's about a 2 to 3% advantage. So it's a rounding error. McKinsey said this, okay? And if we look at Norway, we look at all these countries who've adopted EVs at a larger scale. They've all had the government put their thumb on the scale, okay, through subsidies and things like that. So we had that, okay? And we are here today. The cars that the Chinese build are better than the EVs that the Americans build, the Germans build, the Japanese build. Toyota has a joint venture in China with BYD. So Toyota, so you would think that BYD would get shine from Toyota because of Toyota's reputation? No, it's the other way around in China because BYD's technology is far superior.
Are those sold in the Chinese market, or are those
In the
exported
Chinese
back
market.
to Japan as well?
In the Chinese market.
Huh.
Because, again, that's what it takes to compete in China.
Right.
We can talk about China being a communist country, but it's one of the most competitive markets, automotive markets in the world, full stop.
Yeah. Elizabeth, would you agree that we're heading toward a place where the U.S. does not compete? And if so, do we need to be afraid of that?
There's so much I'm thinking from when you were talking. One, I would like to address the affordability. Vehicles approaching $50,000, they're becoming unaffordable. The U.S. consumer is very different, though, than the rest of the world, especially than the China consumer. An interesting stat this year, even though overall number of vehicles sold in the U.S. is going to be about the same as last year, still in 25, we saw an uptick in SUVs and large trucks. I mean, the U.S. consumer likes these SUVs and large trucks. They cost a lot of money. That Seagull that everybody talks about at $9,000, that is not the vehicle that the U.S. consumer currently would want to buy.
Which one?
Agreed, though.
Which one?
The $9,000.
Not my 25-year-old or my 25-year-old nephew would rather buy that than an F-150.
I'm just talking the statistics of what consumers have been doing. Less than 1 to 2, 3% buy in that level of segment. But the point is that this industry cannot take that for granted because the consumer will change, right? Has the potential to change. But I also think that we really need to clearly understand the true competitiveness, because so often people throw around this, they're so much cheaper. What is the true price of it? They are subsidized to the consumer, subsidized. They're subsidized in manufacturing. Then you also have to factor in the differences in the consumer preferences. So there's a lot to unwind here. I do think that the Jim Farley comment that you made was a cry to the, to his workforce saying, guys, this is serious and we need to take it seriously.
I have told comms people at both companies, when just informal conversations, that I would love to see, and this will never happen, Jim Farley would come closest, love to see one of those people, either a Mary or a Mark Royce or a Jim Farley, go to a place like the Mackinac Conference and give a speech to say, let me tell you what's really going on.
Would that be received, though?
Well, nothing else is working. I mean, now they, of course, the rejoinder I get from the comms people is, well, they never do that. Well, I said, that's the point, isn't it?
I guess, Jen.
And there have been times when Farley has been very, I talked to him after he came back from a China trip 2 years ago, and he was all wide-eyed, and he was talking about the stuff that Tu's talking about. And he said, we're not even in the same league. We got the wrong vehicles, we got the wrong technologies, the last generation, they're killing us.
Okay.
But he didn't say that, oh, this was off the record. I mean, he was honest about it. But the message is not getting through, and it's not getting through to enough constituencies.
And another bad take that's really, really important. China is not an export market for the Chinese EV makers and automakers. It's an export market for the global automakers. Ford made $900 million exporting from China. Okay, GM exports Wulings rebadged as Chevys into Latin America. So China is a global export hub. It's not just a Chinese export hub.
The thing that's so crazy to me about this is when electrification was getting off the ground at the federal level and at the maker level, I was just reading the tea leaves and assuming that this is what was going to happen, is that American consumers wanted, their larger internal combustion engine vehicles, and that eventually the Chinese would enter our market, and that's what, kids who just gotten out of school would buy. And now I just feel like I've had this realization that was never what was happening from day one. Fight me.
So your question, your issue is that the development and markets developed different than you thought it would?
The subtext has changed so much in 5 years,
Well, I think one of the things that is there's political alignment in Washington. One of the few things is China.
Yeah.
And we've seen it play out both in the Biden administration and the Trump administration. Now, the difference is that the Biden administration kind of tried to play both sides against the middle.
Right.
They tried to incentivize the electric vehicle business and did incentivize the electrical vehicle business, but they were still making money and they're still investing in trucks. I think one of the important things to remember here is all the money that Detroit and other companies took out in the middle of the street and lit on fire to invest in electric vehicles and everything, and the administration takes away all the incentives, and all of a sudden that is what we classically call, as you all know, sunk capital. It's gone. It's
But Daniel,
vaporized.
you knew those forecasts from 5-7 years ago that Mary, Jim, all these people were talking about 1 million EVs by 2020. You knew that was bullshit, right?
Well, yeah.
You knew they were never going to hit those numbers, right? You knew that.
If the
right?
regulations stayed, they would have had to meet
They
those
would have
numbers.
not.
They would have had to meet the numbers.
I guarantee you, they would have not. I wrote this in my newsletter.
Well, and then
years
they
ago.
have to pay. Then they have to pay penalties
So
and fines. But the point is that the rug gets pulled out from underneath.
that's the problem.
And this industry is now dealing with the things that we're all dealing with politically, just as citizens. It's the pendulum's going like this, and they have to try and make decisions about going forward.
I'm going to
what's gonna
counterpoint your
happen?
point
EV sales in
about.
China were down last I read also.
Why?
I'm gonna counterpoint
Do we
your
know
point.
why?
Wait.
Did everybody hear that EV
No.
sales are down in China? Do you know why?
I don't know why.
I'd love to know.
What sales are down?
Louder. What was that?
EV sales.
It is 50% of the market. So EV sales or NEV sales, hybrids and battery electric vehicles, will be about the size of the U.S. market. Full stop. 50%. 1 out of 2 vehicles. So we can cry and whine about how unfair things are, but if we're going to go higher price on passenger vehicles in the United States, it's going to be a product for the rich people. We've conceded the affordable sedan hatchback to the Koreans and the Japanese in the United States.
Absolutely.
That's what we've done.
You just brought up a good point about hybrids, right? Because when we talk about numbers like 50%, including hybrids, PHEVs, and BEVs, the growth in the United States in hybrids is almost doubled in the past couple of years. So hybrid technology is resonating with the U.S. consumer.
All my mother's farming, everybody on that side of the family who farms in Northwest Ohio is asking me so much about my Maverick. They want to know all about that thing.
I drive a hybrid F-150.
Yeah.
Which delivers more horsepower and more torque than the V8. I mean, it goes like a scalded cat.
I've got one. Speaking of my Northwest Ohio family, there's one more thing that I've just been starving to talk about, and that's suppliers. I was listening to a story on our network a while ago about the Southern Automotive Conference. It was totally cheesy, but it was like a speed dating event that they've been having for about 13 years between suppliers and makers, and not just domestic makers. There were people at this thing from BMW, and they were literally looking for something more efficient than the trade show floor, where it's not real targeted. I mean, I understand that relationships are really the primary way that things happen. But what should we be doing? My question for you three is, what should we be doing to help suppliers through this time? I mean, we are still right in the middle of uncertainty. What can we do? I don't know, Elizabeth, you want to start?
Yeah, I can start with this one. You mentioned the number one, which is really the partnerships and the relationships between the OEM and the supplier. But also it's something that you mentioned earlier, which is leveraging, really getting the education system and the economic development and the suppliers all working together. OEMs, tier one suppliers, although it's incredibly painful to live through this uncertainty, they know how to survive. They have the financial means. The tier two suppliers, the tier three suppliers don't have the ability to just reinvent themselves at the whim of the changes in policy and changes in product, product scheduling and product plans. So there's some studies that we've done on identifying the risk to the supply base. And we do that, for economic development organizations so that they know exactly where to target and to help with supporting these suppliers. So I think it's working together.
Dan?
Not really my area so much, but I think I would say that, again, these policy issues to make the state more competitive are critical to talent retention and to the success of these suppliers and frankly, these companies. And I don't think we're making enough progress. In fact, I know we're not. And these reports like this one reemphasize that.
That was, I mean, there was some really good, there was great information in there about that.
And I think and I was reading it last night, and I think I may have mentioned this. It struck me about how many of those reports I've read over the years in the job I have, and It's like we're having the same conversation over and over and over again.
I framed this question as like things that we in Michigan can do to help suppliers, but I mean, is the answer here? You have a much stronger feel for what's going on with makers outside of North America.
I think there needs to be a paradigm shift to who we think are tier ones, because software, silicon is a much larger cost or percentage of the cost in the bill of materials. So NVIDIA is a tier one, right? But we don't think of NVIDIA as a tier one, do we? Software providers, because if you look at Bosch, you look at some of these other traditional tier ones, they're moving into intelligent driving, okay? And if I was to tell you that building a car in the next 15 years is going to be commoditized.
Doesn't a tier one like NVIDIA have a hell of a lot more leverage over their customers than your traditional
Sure
tier
feels
one,
like
like a
it?
Lear or
Yeah.
somebody like that? It seems to me they would. I mean, look at what happens with the chip shortage, right?
And so, but that's what I mean. Like, it's important because a lot of the traditional tier ones are in this Rust Belt lean manufacturing area, but in the future, at least from a percentage of cost in the bill of materials, non-traditional tier ones, non-traditional suppliers are going to be a larger portion of that. Data center people, right? Cloud people. Because probably up until 5 or 6 years ago, GM Ford, we're still using indirect buyers to buy silicon, to buy servers. That should be a direct cost now. And software development, how much is being outsourced by the OEMs and tier ones? That's a tier one supplier, right? And so think of it this way, if you guys are in finance, go to the OEMs, look at the bill of material. Where does software development fit on that? Because you're chasing the ghost. Because software development costs are going to be a much larger portion of the bill of materials. Because products aren't going to become intangible, right? They're going to be services. Mary said 20% of GM's revenues by 2035 or something like that were going to be from services, right?
I've been an extremely poor time manager. We have just a couple minutes left here, and I'm sorry to barge in. And I was trying to think of some genius close for us, and we don't even have time to go around the table once more. I guess maybe Elizabeth, like you just came out of MBS in September. Was there anything that we didn't talk about that you were really, really hearing from people that you think is going to be prime in 26?
We didn't talk, I don't think we talked about the smart manufacturing and leveraging AI in manufacturing.
Sorry.
Most of the topics I think we covered at MBS, but that is one also, it's not just leveraging, AI and software and the vehicle talking to the cloud, but it's also the manufacturing stations talking to each other. And so that the efficiency is so much improved, and then that helps to bring costs down. But that goes full circle right into the training, the workforce development that's needed for that, the investment that's needed.
Is it bad to end on AI, you guys? I think we're
Get in
doing
on
it.
Trump.
Huh?
Get in on Trump.
No. No, no. I want to thank all three of you, and really this is, I know the hardest thing about years like this is figuring out what to say about it, and each of you have a big part of that in what you do every day, and we need to give words to what's happening right now because it is wild. Everybody please tell Glenn Stevens what a terrible idea it was to put a public radio person as the moderator for this event, so that you can get someone truly competent next time. And thank you all for being here. And thank you all for all the work that you're doing, because it's wild out there. I hope everyone stays warm and drives safe tonight, and to see you all again next year. Thank you to the panelists.
Let's get an Ussie. Let's get an Ussie.
Oh, okay.
So you guys can take your, oh, look at this. Yes. I don't know about the audience, but I think this was a perfect panel to put together. So April, you did a great job, and thank you. Allow you all to take a seat, and we'll close up our program, and we'll finish up. You guys can come back to. Otherwise, you're going to be in the photo op of our award winners, which wouldn't be bad, really. Thank you, everybody. There's a lot to unpack that was just talked about, and I think that we all live and breathe this on a regular basis. But as we close out the program today, we're going to recognize some people who, you all make a difference, but every year we got to make that hard choice about a couple that really stand out and honor them. And we've been doing this for many, many years. So to help us do that, I'm going to invite a CEO from the industry, but more importantly to us, the chair of our advisory board, and a good friend and peer, and somebody I talk to every week. So Lisa Lunsford.
It's hard to follow that panel. Great information, guys. I took some notes, but let's get down to the business at hand. We are here to recognize a group of people that are very key to us and very important to us. So I would like to introduce Warren Call on behalf of Traverse Connect as the MichAuto Partner of the Year. Beyond the hosting of MichAuto by the Bay and numerous roundtables and gatherings in northern Michigan over several years, 2025 marked a continued strengthening of MichAuto's partnership in the region. Building on an already strong partnership, this August, MichAuto convened innovators, industry leaders, and policymakers to spotlight northern Michigan's emerging leadership in blue tech, outdoor recreation, and advanced aerial systems and future mobility. In 2025, a new event was born, Reshore Innovation at the intersection of water, mobility, and outdoor tech. Reshore and all of MichAuto's work in the region is not possible without the local economic development organizations with transformational visions for their region and leadership to implement that vision into action. That is why we are proud to recognize Traverse Connect as the 2025 MichAuto Partner of the Year. Warren? Next, we have MichAuto Volunteers of the Year, Deanna Lawrence of Martin Rea and Ann Mendel's Cooper Standard. This year, MichAuto is proud to honor two exceptional volunteers whose dedication has made a lasting impact on our talent initiatives. As co-chairs of MichAuto's Talent and Awareness Committee, These individuals have been instrumental in advancing the committee's mission to build a strong talent pipeline that supports the industry's continued growth and evolution. Through their leadership, they guided the successful relaunch of the Talent Committee in 2025. Together, they co-lead the committee made up of marketing and HR professionals, fostering collaboration and selling a standard of participation, commitment, and forward thinking. MichAuto is deeply grateful for your contributions this year. Their passion for strengthening the talent pipeline will continue to benefit the industry for years to come. It's my honor to recognize Deanna Lawrence and Ann Mendels in the 2025 MichAuto Volunteers of the Year. Thank you.
Okay, well, we've come to that point where I stand between you and the bar. So I promise no more PowerPoint slides. But what I will leave you is what Drew and Carly and Paul and Lauren, we get up every morning to work on this industry. So with that, I think you can all get a sense. And again, it is preaching to the choir a little bit, but thank you again to the panel, because we wanted you to have a frank conversation about what's coming at us, what we're in the middle of, and you did that, so thank you. So happy holidays to everyone. Please join us on this project that we're on. It's not new information, but we want to package it. We want to make sure that this voice, our industry, 120 years old, $304 billion of economic contribution, is at the forefront as we get into new leadership and a new era for the state. And there is no question we have challenges. Whether it's the education issues, the broadband infrastructure issues, whatever it may be. And Daniel's right. We've seen the reports, we read the numbers, and we're not moving the needle, and we have to move the needle to compete for the future to grow the state. And I believe the state's got incredible potential, and I think everybody in this room does. So let's work on this together, and in the meantime, the bar is open. Thank you for being here tonight.